Hey y'all, welcome back to Mirror Expressions, where I share a little bit of myself with you all, and I invite y'all to come on in the house to do the same with me. Before we get started, please hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well, and then drop me a mirror emoji down in the chat if you have looked in a mirror today and you feel A1 with what you see looking back at you. And if not, I encourage you to do what you must to get back to a healthier you, so that when you look in that mirror, yes, honey, you are elated with what you see looking back at you. All right, y'all. We are still on this A Friend of the Family. This is episode 4, Artifacts of Faith. Y'all, oh my gosh. This stuff is tripping me out. Like, I don't know how one man could just get over on a whole group of people. Like, it is crazy because it's his wife, it's the mom of the other family, the dad of the other family, the children of the other family. Like, I just don't get it. The people in the neighborhood, like, y'all, it is wild, right? So the episode opens up and we see, now we're back in present day for them, right? So I think it was 1974 or something. So this is right after the little girl Jan has come back home from Mexico. And so they Mary Ann has taken her to the doctor to get checked out or whatever. And you see that just not Mary Ann, but Jan has like this nervous thing she does now. She stays huddles up and she bites her nails. Like, that's her thing now. And we see that throughout this whole episode. And so she's at the doctor to get her checked out. And while she's there, she looking around at people because remember, B had told her that the aliens look just like humans. So she looking at the people like, y'all slick and alien. Like, one lady just kept smiling at her, just to kind of probably put her at ease and just being friendly. But Jan was looking back there later like, I know you are one of them. Like, it was crazy. It was wild. So anyway, she ended up being seen by a male doctor. And I was kind of wondering why did it have to be a male doctor, especially if you're thinking she had been taken advantage of in some kind of way sexually by another male. Like, I would think that my child would be more comfortable with the same sex as herself. You know what I'm saying? But just got to consider the times. There probably were not that many female doctors then. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so the doctor lets Mary Ann know that everything looks okay as far as, if he had penetrated her. He said it appears that her hymen was still intact, and so she's fine or whatever, He said that, she's the typical preteen little girl, whatever. And so, it's Christmas time, and so we see the family. They're waking up with their gifts, and I think they probably went on to church or whatnot. And they come home, and they realize, they keep saying like, "Oh, it's so cold in here. It's cold." And Bob is like, "Let me check the heat to make sure it's on." And he's like, "The heat is on." We're gonna find out. The window in the little girl's room was open. And they don't know why. But then when Jan goes into her part of the room, because remember, B had built a partition so that it seems like she has her own room. He done pulled that ring out of that little keepsake box she had put it in and laid it on her pillow. Kind of like, no, you need to be wearing this. Because, when he gave it to her, he told her it's to signify the mission that she's supposed to complete or whatever. So anyway, Gail ends up showing up. And, okay, so mind you, let me go back. So, they've talked about taking this whole thing to trial or whatever. So, the FBI agents had told Bob and Mary Ann, y'all do not have any communication with them, even if you see them at church, and nothing. Don't talk to them. Tell your children not to socialize with her kids either. And so we kind of see that happen, like we see them at church or whatever. And so yeah, they're all still going to church. I think they're like Mormons or something. I think I caught that. But anyway, so they see each other at church, and then Mary Ann just kind of turns her head like she don't want Gail to come walk over there and talk to her, right? So later on, Gail ends up showing up to the house. It's late at night again. And so Bob answers the door, and she tells him, I want to speak to you privately. So he walks on out there with her, whatever. You know, at first he was like, you know, you shouldn't be here. We're not to talk to you, blah, blah, blah. And she was just like, well, I got some things I think you're going to really want to hear. So I said, look at Miss Gail, baby. If B don't be pimping her out, like, when I say million, I mean million. Because, baby, this whole time, Gail been seeming like this meek and mild little, I don't know, just docile nothingness, right? And all of a sudden, here she come out with these big balls, baby. And she was telling Bob that, I think you're going to want to talk to our lawyers to settle this. And then she just kind of started threatening him, because he was just like, why would I do that? That makes no sense. And she was just like, if you don't, this is going to go to trial. And you don't want that for Jan. Then she started like blackmailing him, talking about some, because you knew and Mary Ann knew that he was not well. And y'all still let Jan come over. Y'all practically just threw her at him. And then she goes on to say, and I know that she was not the only one. And Bob's just like, what do you mean by that? And Gail just like, oh, we're very open with our communication. He's told me what y'all have done before. I said, what the what? Oh my goodness. So, of course, they rattle Bob. And so when he goes back in, he ends up telling Mary Ann that, well, Gail wants us to talk to the attorney, and all this. And then he said, but Mary Ann could see that he was still upset, or very upset. And so he was just like, she was like, well, what is it? And he says, well, she said some very not so nice things. And so, of course, Mary Ann's like, well, what was said? And so he was just saying that if they go to trial, they might say some things about him, like that he's a homosexual. And so Mary Ann's is like, what? I'm confused. I don't get it. And he's like, that's all I want to say. That's all I'm going to talk about. I don't want to have nothing else to, to do with this conversation. He did say that, of course, it had to do with him and B, but that was it. He kind of left her hanging on that. So, they end up, well, first, so it's after the Christmas break. The kids are going back to the school, right? And so, Jan, she's walking through like on lunch period. That's when the whole socialization really occurs. So, ain't nobody trying to talk to her or sit with her. So she ends up going to sit with one of Brother B's kids that she really wasn't supposed to be talking to, right? But he's sitting off to a table by himself. So she goes to join him, and she's just like, I miss you. I'm not supposed to be talking to you, but y'all are still important to me, blah, blah, blah. So he mentions that the reason the other children are not talking about her is probably because of what was said in the assembly. And she was just like, what assembly? And he tells her that they had an assembly regarding her and his dad, but that he wasn't invited he couldn't go to the assembly because it involved his dad. But he says he thinks that they told them in the assembly not to mention anything about it to her. So he feels like that's why nobody's talking to her, right? So, of course, this upsets Jan, and she goes home. She takes it out on her mom. She's like, you told me everything was gonna be back to normal, and everything's not. And so her mom, of course, is heartbroken that her baby is having such a hard time, which I gather I would be heartbroken too. And so later on that night, Mary Ann ends up telling Bob, hey, I think it's time for us to go ahead and talk to the Bertolds lawyer, so we can get this behind us and we don't have to put Jan on the stand, because that's what they were trying to do, avoid having a trial. And so they go see the attorney, right? An attorney is a long time customer of Bob's. Like, she come in to get flowers arrangements from him and all that. So he's thinking they got a good relationship. Baby, that attorney, she wasn't nothing nice either. I said, oh, child, these women. Because she come in with her soft voice. You would think she was just the sweetest thing. But she was very overt with her aggression too, baby. So she ends up passing the two of them some affidavits, right, to sign. It was just like, what are affidavits? These people are so naive, baby. And so she was just like, basically, it's a sworn statement to the truth. And so in it said that they gave permission for B to leave with Jan. They told him to take her. And so both of them were like, well, this is a lie. This isn't the truth. This is not what happened. No, he took her. We don't want to sign this because it's a false statement or whatever. And so the attorney was just like, no, I'm going to let y'all rethink things. And she just started trying to get them, telling them that if they go to trial, they're going to be looked at as bad parents, unfit parents, and the girls are going to be taken away from them. And then, what did she tell them? And then it's going to come out that Bob is a homosexual. And then, what else? I don't know. But yeah, basically all this. So, and she telling the people, like, I've seen this happen. They will take the children away. So, of course, they scared that girl's going to get taken away. So, they end up going on and signing it. Y'all, when they go back to meet with their attorney and the FBI agent Pete, if you could see the look on them people's faces, they were like, I could just hear it. Their look said it all. But of course they said, but their attorney was looking like, you idiots. Because, baby, I know that's exactly what I was thinking. So he's just like, why did y'all sign that? Because he's like, it's going to go to trial anyways. And I think the trial was like the next day or in a couple of days. He was like, it's going to go to trial. Now, all you've done with signing this thing is making it hard for me to prove otherwise. And so he wants them to make a public statement the next day to kind of get ahead of things. So they said they would do it. So then he asks about the marriage certificate, right? He was like, we're going to need that. That's going to be our best bet. Baby, why Bob done sent that thing back to Mexico? What was your point in sending it back? Did you think that was going to do anything? He said, well, I thought by sending it back, I can get it annulled. And I was just like, okay. So the attorney was like, well, did you at least make a copy of it? And y'all, of course, he did. He did. So, Bob, he's tossing and turning, this whole thing. Like, he just feeling like he messed up. Like, basically, he a failure. And then the whole thing about the sexual encounters he had with B been weighing on him, right? So he decided, well, he's going to go talk to the church and let them know. Like, how some faiths you have to confess your sins to, like, the board or something. Like, it's not, I'm a Baptist, and we don't have to do all that, but I know, like, in some denominations, it's similar to this. So I'm kind of guessing this is what that was. And so they made the decision not to excommunicate him from the church, but just disfellowship him, right? So meanwhile, Jan gets this, not Jan, but Mary Ann, she gets this phone call from Bob, from B, and he tells her that, you know, he misses her and that he did all of this so that the two of them can be together. Yeah. And then so Jan is just like, I'm not having it. I can't be talking to you. I don't want to hear it. And then she says, what really happened in down there when y'all were in Mexico, right? And he was just like, I'll tell you everything you want to know. And so she was like, okay, well, speak. And he was like, but I'll need to do it in person. And so she ends up hanging up the phone, right? And I was like, oh, Lord. So at church the next day, it's announced. Well, wait a minute. Let me go back. When she had that phone call with B, she found out he told her that he no longer lives there. And I think it's Pocatello, Idaho, that he lives somewhere else. And he does wherever his brother is. That's where he lives. And he says he did that because he can't get any job around there because of everything that's going on. So he only drives home on the weekends to be with his family. Right? So it's the weekend. They're at church. So the Brobergs are there and the Burstows are there, right? And so it's announced at church that one of the Burstows' little boy is very sick. He's ill. Something's going on and he's in the hospital. And so Jan ends up making a get well basket and wants to take it to him. And so Bob is just like, no, we're not having any communication. It's a no. I'm with Bob on it. And so Mary Ann was like, okay, of course Jan gets upset and she runs off. And Mary Ann is just like, well, we shouldn't make the kids suffer. They're innocent. And so Bob is just threw his hands up like, whatever. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of you always trying to take up for these folks. And so Mary Ann ends up taking a basket over there anyway, y'all. I was just like, goodness. Like, when is enough for you, girl? So Gail opens the door. And so Mary Ann just hands her the basket. And she says, this is for, I think it was the little boy Jasper or whatever. And she said that Jan made this for him. And so Gail's like, oh, Jan really does have such a good heart. And so then Mary Ann turns to leave, but Gail was just like, no, please come in and have a seat or whatever. Mary said, you know, we see these two brides sitting on the sofa knitting with one another. Like, what the? Y'all, I'm just like, goodness. Like, I literally wanted to take Mary Ann myself and shake the hell out of her. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So they're knitting and talking. And so Gail tells her, you know, I really do miss you. And so Mary Ann is like, yeah, I miss our friendship too. She's like, I even tried to bake your meatloaf. It didn't turn out right. And so Gail's like, girl, I got you. I'll make that meatloaf for you anytime. So Mary Ann started tearing up a little bit. And so then Gail uses that. Because Gail ain't innocent either. She looks something else for herself. So she's just like, well, B is really, really bad. You know, he feels so bad about what happened. And he really just wants to apologize to you. And you should really just give him that chance. Okay, so you know this all playing with Mary Ann mind. Because you know she just as naive and gullible as she want to be. So she go home. And that night, her and Bob, they're in the bed. And so she thinks he's asleep. And it's kind of like how you tell somebody something when you think they're not really listening, just so you can say, well, I told it to you. So, because she looks over at him and he got on his side with his eyes closed, whatever. And so she tells him, well, I'm going to go see my mom tomorrow. And apparently her mom lives maybe a couple of cities over, like Apparently not too far from wherever B is staying at right now. So, honey, we see Mary Ann get in that car the next day, and baby, she is driving. It looked like she left early that morning, and by the time she made it to B, it was dark outside. So she gets to B, and y'all, he is in that motorhome. He camping out in that motorhome in front of his brother's house or whatever. And I'm just like, how the hell did he still get that camper? Like, I know they didn't bring it up here from Mexico. Did they allow him to drive it back? Like, what? Like, why was that not impounded? Like, y'all, I'm just bewildered. I tell y'all, like, anyway. So he's sitting outside waiting on her. And y'all know, he comes in with that look. You know, he got them looks, baby, be catching them. And so he invites her in, talking about, I know it's cold and I know how you hate to be cold. So she come on in, and at first she just kind of standing at the door, and he just like apologizes, and he says, you know, it really wasn't about Jan. It was really about Mary Ann, because she has ruined everything since the moment he saw her. He's wanted her, and that he did all this so that they could be together, and that you know, when it was Jan there and she was cooking, all he could think about was there being Mary Ann, because she reminded him so much of her. So then he tells her, sit down, get comfortable. Let me fix you something hot to drink. Yeah, I really thought he was finna drug the woman. I was like, because he was over there doing something like you couldn't see, but now she sat down and he just started breaking down, like he was crying, all emotional. So then he go falling between her lap. And y'all, so she started petting him up, rubbing his head and stuff. And then next thing you know, it was going down. It went from that to them kissing to he done banged the wife now. After he done adopted, after he done kidnapped their child. Yeah, make it make sense. Make it make sense. I'm like, good gosh almighty. But anyways, that was it. That was episode 4. That was basically the gist of it. We'll get a new episode on Thursday. So I will be back then. Y'all tell me, what are y'all thinking about this series? It's like a train wreck that you cannot look away from. Like, literally, from not even just the part of him kidnapping the child, just how he just out here finessing everybody in these streets. It's a whole train wreck. Like, and then his wife, she's slick like, well, y'all knew he was sick too. What? Y'all, let me tell you about this part too, because I forgot to tell you about when the trial actually started, right? So, when Jan got on the stand first, and they were just like, well, how do you know Mr. Robert Burstow? And she was just like, oh, he's my really good friend. And the attorney was like, God damn it. I'm like, you making it difficult. And then when Mary Ann got on the stand, they trip her up, because then she starts talking about, well, like, you knew about his depression, you knew that he was going to see a psychiatrist, and you knew about the tapes. And she was like, yeah. And so the attorney, now this is his attorney, will tell us about these tapes. Well, the psychiatrist told him to listen to some tapes of him and his wife while they're on the beach, and to lay down, that he needs to lay down next to Jan while he's doing it. And so the attorney's like, oh, so you allowed that to happen? And she was like, yeah, the doctor said it. I said, good gosh. Talking about, but nothing would happen. He would just be on top of the sheets on the bed. And I would go in and out and maybe bring them some water or something. So nothing inappropriate ever happened. Why are you laying down with a child that is not sure, first of all, in the bed? And why are you allowing this grown man to do that? Talking about some, well, if the doctor says it, and I believe the doctor, that this is a therapy type of therapy for him. I didn't know. Yeah, y'all. It was crazy. It was crazy. Then Bob got up there and they tried to trip him up. And it was found out that Bob and B had more than that one sexual encounter that we knew about where he got them off. So apparently that happened more than once. And then so afterwards, we see Jan kind of sitting outside the courtroom. She's probably just waiting for it to all end, everybody to come out. And so as she's sitting there, she ends up getting up and going to the water fountain to get some water. And here go B. He off in a cut somewhere. And so he just reminds her that, you know, you shouldn't be touching any other male, especially your earthly dad. And don't forget the mission. And he tells her, I love you, Dolly. I love you. And he blows her kisses. I said, oh my gosh, this is so sickening. I mean, they got this baby sitting up praying because, you know, she faithful with her prayers. She praying. She around there asking God to forgive her for lying because she knows she can't talk about the baby or the mission and Zeta and Zethra, and praying that her sisters don't go blind, and praying that she be able to complete the mission and save this other planet. And she praying that you know that the aliens are pleased with what she's doing because she don't want to have Susan take her place, baby. Then she even going to her other sister talking about something. You feel okay? This the one that B got her thinking is half alien too. You feeling okay? I'm gonna always protect you. Yeah. I was just like, oh my goodness. This is too much. It is too much. It's too much, y'all. It's too much. Anyways, I don't know. I got so many thoughts swirling around in my head, but like I said, yeah, the next episode won't be out now until Thursday. So I'll be back then with the new recap and review, and we'll keep on this ride. All right, y'all. Peace out. I'll pray for you all. Y'all, please pray for me, and we will what? Watch God change things. Bye, y'all.